back again to talk about all things sports cards. Now, one of my favorite things to do on this channel is when I notice something going on in the hobby, or I think that I see something going on in the hobby, is to ask everybody else, what do you think's going on? And to kind of throw it out there and just talk about it and see if others are seeing what I'm seeing. When I think of card collecting, far and away, to me, the roots of card collecting, the original foundation of card collecting, to me, the truest collectors of them all are set builders. And set building has been around for such a long time. Now, it's kind of debatable when set collecting actually started, but card numbering was certainly an awesome idea of marketing by the different card producers to get people to start putting together the set and wanting to buy more cards to complete their set. So, when did that begin? Well, in 1909, the Philadelphia Caramel set is one of the first sets. Now, whenever you start talking about the history of everything, anything, there starts to be a little bit of a debate. But most people agree that the 1909 Philadelphia Caramel set was one of the first, if not the first time, that cards started to have a numbering system to them. So we're talking about 115 years ago, they started numbering cards. Now, that first set didn't have a separate number on each card, but on the backs of the cards, it had a list of all the cards with a number associated with it for the whole 25 card set. The 1911 Turkey Red set is the first time, most people would agree, that cards themselves actually had numbers on them. So the very first card of the very first set that has a true numbering system was Mordecai Three Finger Brown in that 1911 set. And the thing that I think is interesting is a lot of us are kind of completionists, right? Now, it doesn't matter what you collect. Maybe you're into Hank Aaron cards and you want the whole Hank Aaron run. Until it is complete, doesn't it seem like something's kind of missing? There's kind of this void. But then once you finish one set or one run, then you want to start on the next thing. So I remember as a kid, my dad collecting the 1959 and 1960 sets. His 1960 top set for baseball is still in, I think, the top 20 of the all-time PSA set registries on PSA's website. He had an average of an 8.0 for his cards in that set. That means for Mickey Mantle and for Hank Aaron and for Sandy Koufax and for Carl Yastrzemski, for all of them, he averaged an 8 grade on those cards. I remember him going through boxes one at a time, going through all of the commons and all of the stars and all of the minor stars from that 59 and 60 set. And I remember he wasn't alone. There were tons of collectors out there that were going through set building because, again, I think that is the root. That is the foundation of card collecting, is putting together sets. Occasionally, I will still see somebody out there putting a set together. Now, it did not take long for a lot of the manufacturers to start to kind of play some marketing games to maximize the fact that people were putting together sets. It was the 1933 Gowdy set where Gowdy put out this set, and one of the cards, which also happened to be one of the biggest stars of the day, Nat Lajoie, his card wasn't actually in the sets. It wasn't until 1934 when that card could be obtained by doing a send away to Gowdy during the 34 set to get that missing card from the 33 set. So a lot of people that were trying to put that set together back then were continually trying to obtain more cards because they were looking for the missing card, which was that Nap Lajoie, who, by the way, is a card that a lot of people wanted because he was one of the biggest stars. I mean, toward the very top of the list. And as a result, even today, that 1933 Gowdy card is very recognizable and very distinct and very rare because of the way it was obtained and not through the pack system that so many of the other cards, well, all of the other cards from the set came through. So that brings the question, is set collecting, is set building, is it dying? Is it going away? Now, my dad, who was a set collector for years, I asked him in a recent interview that I posted on this channel, hey, do you think you'll ever be a set builder again? And he said, no. And I think so many people are moving away from set building. Now, there are still a lot of set builders out there, but the number of set builders certainly seems to be shrinking. Now, why is that? What is the reason? And that's really my question for everybody, is why is set building going away? Or is it not going away and it just seems to me like it is going away? Well, I think there are probably a few reasons why set building has started to kind of tail off. Number one, I blame the grading companies. Back in the day with PSA, you could send in a bulk order for about $6 a card and get your cards graded for $6. Now, when you're talking about a common that maybe you pick up for, a couple, $2, $3, and then you put 6 into it, you're all in about $10 for the card. Right now, if you were to send in a card to SGC or PSA, you're looking at like $20 plus just for the grading alone. The cost of grading going up, I think, has really cut into the premium set building that's going out there. Now, if you are just trying to put the set together, not too worried about, the condition and whether or not the cards have been authenticated, whether the cards have been gone through that whole process, then it wouldn't affect you as much. But the people who used to be putting sets together, getting them graded, putting them on the set registries is what really seems to be drying up, at least from my perspective. If you don't see that perspective, let me know. The second reason I think that set collecting, specifically the premium set collecting, is starting to die off is the reason that a lot of us think that card grading has gotten tougher. If you were trying to put together a 1960 PSA 8 set like my dad did years ago, the difficulty of pulling an 8, of getting a card, submitting the card, and having it get an 8 is really, really low. I mean, how often recently has a vintage card from the 50s or early 60s gotten a 7 or an 8 or a 9? Now, yeah, it happens, but it certainly seems like the frequency is down. So you've got to spend $20 or $25 to send your card in. You've got to wait a while if you use PSA. Now, SGC's turnaround time is much faster. So you send it into PSA, you wait 2 months, you get it back, and it may not even get the grade that you were expecting it to get. So the tougher grading standards, I think, are another reason why the set building that's been happening for years and years is slowly starting to go away. Now, the third reason is a common complaint that I've heard people talk about that are modern collectors or lean toward modern cards is they don't want to be spending money. They say people don't want to be spending money on players they've never heard of. And I get that. I get the fact that a 15-year-old right now may not be into Al Kaline and may not be into Brooks Robinson because they never saw them play and they don't even know who they are. So likewise, somebody who's, even older and even lived during the era, during the 50s and 60s, they may not be familiar with a lot of the common players. So when you're talking about buying the card in good condition, spending the money, sending it off to get graded, waiting for it to get back, you're talking about $30, $35 to get the card in the holder, which may not even be the grade that you were expecting or hoping for, all for a guy you've never even heard of. That's a lot of money to spend for somebody who you're not going to see clips of, you're not going to see on the Hall of Fame wall, and you just frankly don't know who they are. Ultimately, my opinion is the main reason that we are going away from set collecting is because we only have so much money. The price of vintage cards have gone up, and people want to spend that money on the players that they like, on the players that they remember, on the players in the Hall of Fame. So I think set collecting, as it has slowly faded away, in response, we're starting to see Hall of Fame runs of different years. That has grown and grown and grown a lot over recent years. I think player runs has grown and grown and grown over years. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not like this just started. I've shown at times my collection. When I was a kid, I was a Roger Clemens fan, and I have like 150 different Roger Clemens cards, whether they be, jumbo sunflower seed cards or KB Toys cards or Kmart cards or Topps cards or Score cards or Donruss cards or Fleer cards. People have always been into player runs, but I think that what we've seen is the growth of a super collector, the growth of a player collector, of a player run collector, of a Hall of Fame era collector or set collector. And I think it's really replaced those set collectors. And the reason I say that, the ultimate example to me is the amount of set breaking that has happened recently. I feel like every time I turn around, there's a set break. And what has become fairly popular as a lot of younger collectors and modern collectors are buying into, box breaks or case breaks, what a lot of vintage collectors have done is bought spots into set breaks. For example, you buy a $15 spot in a 1956 top set. You get one spot, they do the drawing, you figure out what your one card is, and it could be the 56 Topps Mickey Mantle, or it could be the 1956 guy that you've never heard of. And it seems to me like people are moving toward that goal of going after the premium cards, the premium players, the all-time greats, and they're moving away from that set completion thing. Let me know, do you think that set collecting is starting to go away? And do you think it's being replaced by player runs and Hall of Fame runs and player super collectors? Do you think it's being replaced by that? Or do you think that it's just something that is, one has died off and the other one just continues to thrive? Because as we all know, player runs have been around for a while, Hall of Fame runs have been around for a while, and I'm really interested to see what the upcoming SGC registry looks like. And I'm really hoping that it's not just sets, that it is player runs in their registry, that it is Hall of Fame runs in their registry, whether it be year or set or decade. I think, hopefully, their registry is all-encompassing, like PSA's has evolved into, as they've moved away from only having set registries and into a whole bunch of different registries. Let me know what you think on this topic. Will set building make a comeback? Is set building dead, or is set building dying? And if so, what is it being replaced with and why? Let me know what you think.